Hello quilt friends, welcome back to the Rose Garden Sew Along. This is our final week in the Sew Along, and so this will be our last time meeting, my last time walking you through all the different steps to make this quilt. And I think having a sew along is a great way to accomplish a quilt like this, which is usually a little more difficult and a little more involved, and having these weekly goals where we get together and sew certain blocks and I walk you through those steps. I hope that has helped you accomplish a quilt that you maybe wouldn't normally tackle. So for this week, I'm going to walk you through how to assemble those final sections on your big rose quilt. We'll talk a little bit about the borders, and then I'm going to walk you through how I did the machine quilting on a couple of the different options. So I know not all of you do your own machine quilting, but for those of you who do, I thought that might be helpful. Then when it comes to doing the binding, I'm gonna link a couple tutorials in the comments, not in the comments, in the description section, so that if you want to link to those and learn a couple of tips from me on how to do the binding, you can. And there's other videos on my YouTube that you can explore for other handy tips on different things. So I'm gonna get my camera moved and set up, and I'm gonna walk you through those final sections. But I just want to say thanks for joining me, and thanks for sewing along and making the Midnight Rose Garden quilt. And if you liked this sew along and you like this process, you can subscribe to get more notifications from me on when my next sew along might be. And I'd appreciate if you would share with some friends what you might have learned here and about some of these patterns and fabrics. So I will be right back with our tutorial. Okay, so as you can see, I can't quite get my camera back far enough to fit everything in the view, and also my design wall isn't big enough, but I'm going to walk you through the steps anyways. So we're going to be doing steps 36 through 38 in your pattern. So I have those sections laid out, and I do mention that if you want to, you can go ahead and trim these edges straight. If you're worried about that bias edge stretching out, you can also just draw a line there, just so that you have a reference when it comes to lining your pieces up. So the first thing you're going to do is sew these two bottom sections together. This long seam right here will fit, and after that, then you'll be able to add this cross section and sew that long seam together. Then the only thing you have to do is we have triangle A up here, and we have triangle D on the floor in that bottom corner, which you can't see, but I'll come a little closer with this. You'll have these two triangles to add here. So that is the assembly on getting those pieces together. Then we're gonna add our borders. Now the border has kind of a fun little detail with an angled corner here, and that is very easy to do. You're just gonna take a border square, like so, and you're going to do a folded corner up here on all four corners of your quilt, and that will make that pretty little angle there for you. Then you can sew all your border strips together end to end to get one long length, and the pattern does give you some sizes for cutting those borders, but of course you're going to want to measure through the middle of your own quilt in several spots and compare it to that measurement before you cut, and then get an accurate size for that. Then let's talk a little bit about finishing. What I'd like to show you is the wide backs that go with the collection that you could use for the backing on your quilt. I only have one of them in right now because a bunch of them have been, the two other colors have been delayed, but this is what the wide back from the collection looks like. It's a medallion style print with a lot of different colors in it. So this is 108 inches wide, so you wouldn't have to piece it. If you want to use one of the wide backs, you will need 2 1/8 yards. It says on the back of the pattern, 2 1/8 yards. So I'll show you the other colors since I don't have those fabrics here yet, but it does come in a tea rose color, and it does come in this cream. So I think the tea rose would be pretty. You could also use one of the main florals from this collection. So the collection has this teal floral. See with these pretty roses and these little stems coming out. This is actually what inspired the design. So I think that this would make a beautiful backing. You would need to piece it, and it would take 5 7/8 yards of this to do the backing out of that regular 44-inch wide print. You could also use the navy floral. And this also comes in a pink color. It's not the same pink as the border, it's a little bit lighter pink. So those would be options for you for getting your backing together. Then I'm gonna switch how I have my camera set up, and we will talk about the machine quilting. So I have my camera moved now over to my cutting table, and I have 4 of the quilts handy here that I've already quilted. I also have 3 versions of this pattern that I haven't quilted yet, but for the ones that I have quilted, I'm going to show you a little bit about how I quilted them. I just have some stippling in the background here. You can see I did a simple leaf design, kind of echoing that small part of the leaf, trying to emphasize the pieced pattern that we made. I also have some little leaves here in this flower and just did a little simple echo design there. The rose part though is really what I wanted to accentuate. So I'm just going to show you how I quilted them. I have kind of a swirly meander here and some little circles and an echoing pattern here. So I have a piece of clear plastic here that I have put some blue painter's tape around so that I can draw right on top of my quilt, and you can watch how I make those patterns. So I have a dry erase marker here. And let's just do this swirly design here where I kind of make, you know, sort of a question mark sort of design. And then I echo my way back out. And I'm going to sneak over to where the next pattern goes. And you can see I'm just kind of working my way into the next part of the pattern, just following the color that makes that shape on the rose. So that's what I did in that lighter part. Now in the darker red, I did this little circle pattern. So these are just circles that you make a long row, echoing the edge of the red, or the edge of the, you know, this section of the rose. Then I'm gonna come along and do the other side, like so. And then I just went back and forth in between those 2 patterns, and that's how I created this design, which is, I don't know, I think it's kind of dramatic and really emphasizes that part of the rose. Okay, so now I'm just erasing my pattern here. Then let's take out this one so I can show you how I did this pattern. This one I did the leaves just a little bit differently. This one I stippled in the part where the dark green is, and then I echoed. So I just made a leaf kind of pattern here in this other green. Maybe you can see it a little bit better from the back side. So that I did all the leaves the same. This one I did real similar to the other one with that little echoey leaf, but in the middle I just made a little swirl design here. And then on the actual rose part, again, I did that swirly meander here. And then I did kind of a rose pattern here. So again, I just want to draw it for you so you can see how I did that. I just made these little feather type shapes here, kind of dividing the space in half and just working my way around the edge of the rose. Now I can only go that far before I hit my edge of my blue tape. Then I'll come along and do the other side. So just like so, and that's what makes that little feather pattern there. So that's also a pretty pattern to do in that. I'm going to erase my feather here so I'm ready for the next pattern. That's what all that noise is in the background. Now let's bring out one of the big rose quilts. This one again, I'm not going to be able to get all the way back with my camera, so I'm going to try to show you the individual parts, and then I will, at the end of the video, show kind of a big picture of the design. So here you can see I did just, I call it a caramel roll swirl in the middle there. And in the flower petal, I just kind of echoed the yellow petals that were there. So they're just freehand, they're not perfect. But I went like that all the way around, and then I came back and did just a little loop, like so. And I wanted to just really emphasize that those are all supposed to look like separate petals, just like a daisy would look. In the teal flowers, I did a bunch of just little simple patterns. This one is maybe my favorite. You can see just the little echo pattern that happens there. Now in my leaves, I did a triple echo. So one in the middle of the lighter green and then two in the middle of the outer. Very similar to what I already showed you. In the center of the rose, there's that caramel roll swirl I talked about again. And this one, I did the little pebbly design along the outside of one side and then just did a half feather echoing that shape. So this is probably my favorite of the designs that I did on the roses. So that one is, I'd say, a little bit simpler than the other two that I showed because it only has one line of the petals or the little circles instead of two. And I find those to be a bit of a challenge to do. They're putsy, they take a lot of time. So. And then in the background, I didn't want to do just a plain stipple in the background because I had done that on a couple of my other ones. So I'll show you the little, it's kind of like a little paisley design combined with a feather. So it's just this little simple shape over and over. So make that little kind of flattened loop there and then echo around it. And then just do that until all your shape is filled in. And that's the pattern I used in the background. And then in the border, I'll just quickly show you how that one is done. I simply did this. It's a little bit like writing in cursive. A little bit like a cursive L or a cursive E, kind of in a way. Okay, so let's go on to my last one here that I want to show you. And that's this very springy version out of my Gingham Cottage collection. And this one just has an all-over pattern. So I hired somebody that has a computerized machine to do this. And you can see this is the repeat right here. And I think it's just really pretty. So let's take a closer look. Do you see how it has some daisies in it? It's got this echo leaf, which I think kind of relates to this pattern here. And then it's got a bunch of other sort of swirly type and leaf designs, a few circles to fill in. Let me slide it over here so you can see it on the rose as well. And I'll probably show a big shot of this one too so that you can see how that quilting looks. So it's a lot less expensive to have it done this way, but it still looks really pretty and elegant, I think. So that gives you a few options for what you can do. And like I said, I'll show a few more shots of some of the quilting. But I just want to say a final thank you for joining me on this sew along, and I hope you had a good time, and I hope you made a project that you love. As I'm showing you the quilting on this one, I just want to comment on these kind of odd angles here that we have that you have to bind around here and here. They aren't your typical 90-degree corner. So I do have an old blog that is still up online, and I talk about binding those odd angles. So you can go to ankastreasures.wordpress.com, then click on the tutorials tab, and you can scroll down until you see the post on binding odd angles, and I will walk you through how to do that. I also have a post on hand stitching the binding, and I also have a post on machine stitching your binding. So I will link those in the comments section so that you can click on that and go over to those sections if you are interested in learning about that as well. Now, as I'm giving you a closer look at this one, I would also love to hear in the comments what part of the quilt along you found helpful, what types of tutorials you might be interested in learning about, what you might want to see as my next sew along. Any comments that you have that might be helpful to me in this process of figuring out how to teach the most that I can about quilting and how to help you all learn as much as I can. So I'd love to hear any ideas you have in the comments.